Hi friends! Today I'm going to talk about things you can do to make your life easier when it comes to reptile keeping. If you are a busy person and you're strapped for time, this is the video for you. Thanks for stopping by. You're watching Midwest Lizard Mom. Now, I'm not saying that you should be lazy and neglect your pets. Far from it. What I'm going to cover are things you can do to make things more efficient and save you time, and then you can give them the best life. 1. Prepping food. As soon as you get your veggies home from the grocery store, one thing you could do is sort through them right away and pull out anything that's starting to go funky. Usually, not every thing of mustard greens, for example, is going to be perfect. You might have to pull out things that look yellow, or if they look slimy, maybe you shouldn't have picked that up, but likely you can find a good amount of it that's still good veggies. So when you get it home, just take it out of the bag, go through it, and toss things that are not good. That'll save you a little bit of time. You can also take the veggies and pre-rinse them and put them in like a salad saver type of thing or container. I like to alternate paper towels in between. That way it will help to soak up any moisture so it doesn't get funky in there. But you will want to replace those paper towels. So one thing you could do is just wait to do that part. However, I do find that if you pre-prep by rinsing and then shaking it off, so make sure it's drier, and then putting paper towels in between in the salad saver, then it will help you to keep those veggies better longer. I have noticed a difference. Do I always do it? No, but it's just something that I found is helpful. Plus, when you go to grab it to prep their salad, you already know that it's washed because you washed it already. As long as it's in the salad saver, it's washed. If it's still in the produce bag, it's not. Okay, so I used to buy a squash every few days because I assumed that it would go bad and I would need to replace it. Or I would cut it in half and I would eat half of it and then keep the rest for my bearded dragon, but just assume that after 3 or 4 days it should go away. Well, one thing I have found that if you cut off just a portion of it, so I like to start up with the top because there's no seeds there, and just kind of cut away what you need. If you put it in the refrigerator, it will help to keep it better longer. Obviously, you'll want to make sure that it doesn't get mushy or slimy, but that will help with saving you time from having to go back to the store and get more veggies, if, well, squash anyway. So that I found is helpful to save you some time. Also, when you're prepping the squash, set aside some extra to give to the feeders. So at the same time that you're feeding your pet, you're also feeding their food, and what goes into their food goes into them. So you want good stuff going into the feeders. I honestly don't buy cricket food. I do have the water things, the mushy water jelly stuff, and I put that in there. But as far as food, I put almost always just fresh vegetables from what I would have given my bearded dragon, but I just prepared too much. Or I give them the stuff that has the little veins in it because I don't like to give that to my beardie. Another thing you can do for food prep is prep more than 1 day at a time. I usually do 2 days. The reason why is if I do more than 2, it could get kind of icky. So I'll prep 2 days at once. So the first day that I'm prepping, obviously I don't put that in a container, but the other one I put it in a glass container. Kind of spread it out so it doesn't sit clumped together and potentially get kind of gross. And then the next day when I take out the prep stuff, I don't do much in the way of squash. I'll kind of make small pieces, but then small like strips of it. But then I will make the pieces a lot smaller when I'm going to feed him that day. So I feel like it keeps it better longer if I do that. So that's another thing you can do is just prep 2 days at once. That way, 1 day you're prepping it anyway, and then just prep extra. And the next day you don't have to worry about it. You just put the food out, and that'll save you some time. While we're talking about prepping in advance, another thing you can do is if you have a reptile that's awake during the day and you have a reptile that's awake during the night, you can prep their food all at once. If it's something like a crested gecko or a chahua, a day gecko, well, I guess day geckos are probably a day. I haven't really looked into them. But anyway, they have this powder food. They also eat insects, but they have this powder food that you mix with water. So another thing you could do is to just save time, do all of your food prep at once. So even though they're not going to eat it at that point, you could prep it. Some people like to put it in a squeeze bottle. I found that it doesn't really stay very good. It usually gets thicker. So you could also just, put it directly into the containers and put it in their enclosure. And then when you go to spray their enclosure down in the evening, just check to see if the consistency is still good, or if you might need to add some water and stir it a little bit. So that'll save you some time. Also, if you have reptiles that try to escape, putting their food in while they are sleeping is probably for the best. I have had some escape attempts. I can talk about that sometime if you want. Number 2, automatic lights and misters. I, for the longest time, did not put anything on timers. I would just wake up in the morning, make sure that my reptile had its 12 hours of sleep, turn on the lights, and then make sure I turn them off. Well, one problem is that if you don't get home in time to turn them off, their light is going to be on for a very long time, potentially longer than it should be. I also manually spray down my crested geckos and my chihuahuas enclosures. But I am going to, for the second time, install misters. I did have misters at one point when I went on vacation, but the problem is when I came back, it was so soaked that I was worried it was going to cause a problem with moisture. So I am still going to do it again and make sure I get everything good to go. But that's just something to think about, is if you decide to do an automatic thing like misters, lights, make sure that if, say, you lose power, that you get that right back up on how it should be time-wise. So if you have a mister that's set up, make sure that you're always checking the water level, because if that reptile in particular needs that water to thrive, or they will die. Some reptiles, if they're not constantly getting that humidity, they'll die pretty quickly. I think some frogs are like that too. Then you'll want to make sure that you check those misters every day. I would just say when you go to feed your reptile, just check the mister, make sure that it has enough water, continue to fill it, just make sure that it doesn't run out, especially if it's one like that. I don't have any that are that critical. Mine have been able to just be misted in the morning and the evening, and if I need to again during the day, I can certainly do that. But some reptiles do have that really high humidity requirement. So you just want to make sure that you're not forgetting to check that water level. You could even make a schedule so you don't forget, or just say every time I feed them, I'm going to check. Unless you don't feed them very frequently based on their species, then you might want to do it every day or every other day. I mean, there's no harm in checking the level and just going, yep, we're good. And also making sure that the nozzles are not malfunctioning. Mine were spraying out too much water, so it was soaking the enclosures, and it seemed fine at first, but then after, it had been on for a while, I went, wow, this is extreme. So I decided not to do it and just go back to manual spraying. But I do want to get back to it to make sure that they get that consistency, because I think it's nice for them too, knowing what to expect. The other thing too is that once you get things set up on automatic timers like automatic lights and misters, if you decide to do that, you will enjoy sleeping in. So if you used to wake up to make sure that your reptile's lights were on, I used to do that, then you don't have to worry about that anymore, because it will do it on its own. Now I'm going to show you how to set up automatic lights based on a brand that I've used in the past. I hope this helps. Number 3, go bioactive. It's great for keeping the enclosure clean because you'll have a cleanup crew that will clean. You'll still need to remove the animal's feces. Sometimes the cleanup crew will take care of it, but the urates, they typically don't. So you'll definitely want to take care of that. But as far as, there being a mold issue, the cleanup crew should help with that. They should help keeping the dirt fresh. So I really recommend that. Also, if you have a reptile that lays eggs or has ever had shedding trouble, If you have a good bioactive enclosure setup that has the right humidity level, then your reptile will thrive. I have a crested gecko who's had trouble laying in the past, and since she went bioactive, she has not had trouble. So she lays her eggs just fine, and she's very happy and healthy, and she doesn't try to escape her enclosure. Not that she was a flight risk, but she definitely is happy in there. She doesn't necessarily want to leave. So that's good. Plus, bioactive enclosures provide great enrichment. So if your reptile is a good fit for it, not all of them are, and maybe you're not, but if it is, it's a great opportunity to not only save you some time with some of the aspects of cleaning, but also to give them that enrichment that is so great for them. Number 4, buy a variety of feeders so you don't run out and you don't have to go to the store. I like to buy a variety of feeders and feed the ones that die off quicker. So for example, dubia roaches don't seem to live very long. So I tend to feed those off first when I get my order. So I'll order dubia roaches. Dubia.com sends them in a cup, which I like. Some send them in bags, and I don't like the idea of them potentially crawling out of the bags. So I really like that they send it in a cup. And then I also like to get super worms. I am doing mealworms a little bit now. Unless your husbandry is spot on, I wouldn't do them just because they are a little bit harder to digest. But in a pinch, I will use mealworms. Silkworms are my favorite. They are hands down my favorite feeder to give kaiju and my other reptiles. All my reptiles will eat silkworms, so that's really great. Hornworms are more of a treat, or it's more, think of it like junk food for reptiles. So hornworms, junk food, not great. But sometimes it's good, especially if your reptile is a little dehydrated, because they're so juicy. They are juicy. They will help with that. So I would just not make it a habit to do hornworms, because they are also fatty and you don't want to overfeed your reptile and make them overweight, because it makes them unhealthy. Oh, the other thing I like to get from dubia.com are their black soldier fly larvae. When I get them, they seem very fresh, and I have gotten them from other places where I get them and some of them have turned into flies already, and it's a little bit startling when you open up the container and you can't see until you open it and there's a fly coming out of it. And it's not a normal fly, it's a black soldier fly. And black soldier flies, in my opinion, look a little creepy. They look a little bit between like a flying ant and a bee. So personally, I'm not really a fan of the fly version, although I'm sure they're fine. I have put them in the refrigerator when they've turned to flies. One seller has a container that's clear, so I would put it in the fridge when they turn into flies, and then that slows them down, and then I would use that to tong feed kaiju, because beardies have a bad depth perception. I know I made a video about this, but I'm going to say it again. Bad depth perception. If you let them chase after it, by the time they might actually catch them, the flies are probably already flying around. So just to make sure that they don't end up all over my house, I'll tong feed him those. But they're also really good for your reptiles. My other geckos have not really taken to them, so those are more of a kaiju thing. Superworms are fattier, so I wouldn't choose them as my go-to staple, but I have given them pretty consistently. You can see that kaiju's not an overweight dragon. I don't give him a lot of them. I mostly stick to like dubia roaches, crickets if I'm desperate, because my local pet store has crickets. Silkworms are my absolute favorite, but I can't always get them. Sometimes where I want to get them is out, so that's unfortunate. But supers are definitely also a favorite, and he likes them a lot. Also, some of the feeders other reptiles like. So silkworms are fabulous because all of my reptiles will eat them, so I don't have to do multiple trips to the store or multiple orders from different places if I get it from one place. Like dubia.com is where I get a lot of my bugs. Fram's Cams, they're a chameleon seller, a chameleon breeder, and they send large quantities of silkworms. They have 3 different sizes, the small, medium, and large. And I usually get like a pack of 50 of them, and I try to grow some up, but it doesn't always happen because they end up getting eaten too fast. But I have grown them up into moths. They're adorable, and they don't fly. So if they end up turning into moths, you can still feed them to your bearded dragon. And it's a fun little enrichment thing. They'll kind of scoot around and flap their wings, but they can't fly. So you don't have to worry about them getting out of the enclosure, and your pet will probably have fun chasing them around while he attempts to get them because their depth perception is so bad. Finally, I'm sorry that I have to say it, number 5 is don't overbuy reptiles. I love reptiles. It is so easy because they are so easy to take care of and so cute to want to buy a ton of them. But you got to think about what is going to give them the best life and what can you handle. So if you're watching this video, you might be watching because you're a busy person, or you're just looking for some quick tips, or you're just happen to stumble across this. But my advice is, before you get a reptile, think about it for a while. I usually like to do a lot of research and do that before I get a reptile. So my Chihuahua I wanted for over a year. My hognose snake I wanted for over a year. My gecko, my crested gecko, I didn't want that long. I got him quickly, and then I got another one within a few months. And yeah, so it can be very easy to just jump in and buy a bunch, but what you want to stay away from is animal hoarding. If you get too many, you can end up not being able to afford it and having to rehome. And it's better to rehome than to keep if you can't take care of them properly. But my best advice is to try to avoid that in general, because it's sad when you have to go, oh, which one or ones do I need to give up? So just try not to overbuy. Try to be reasonable, and yeah. Or if you need someone to like remind you, feel free to watch this. You don't need that reptile right now. You don't need it right now. You probably want it right now, but you don't need it. So step back and think about it before you get that reptile. I would have so many more if I didn't do that, because I do have a limit. But yeah, I would have a lot more reptiles in my house, but I'm not going to do that to my family. So they love them, but I could have like an entire room full of them. So, but you also have to think of the space. Can you give them adequate housing? Can you give them the food they need, the time that they need? If they're a needy reptile like bearded dragons, they are very much people dragons. They like to spend time with you, and if you don't have that time, it's really hard to take care of them and do a good job. So my advice is to just step back. If you want a reptile, do tons of research, make absolute sure before you do that. That way you know that you're making the right decision for you and for them, because they are a living creature and you want to make sure that you give them the best life as well. Anyway, I hope that this was helpful. I hope some things were new or not. That's fine too. Anyway, if you got this far, thanks for watching. It's been a while that I've recorded, so really appreciate you taking time and getting this far into the video. So I will see you in the comments. You'll see me next time. Bye.